Doc, let's talk about the stages in your career. What was your first performing job?
If you want to count with the dance band,
Yeah.
it would have, my first performing job would have been here in Boone at the American Legion hut
Mm-hmm.
with a fellow named Charlie Osmond and a fellow Gerald Little who used to run Dixie Music here in Boone. He's a pretty good bass player, and he played the bass fiddle. Me and Charlie Osmond, and I played the guitar, and Gerald played the fiddle. It was guitar, fiddle, and the bass.
It was a dance band, square dance band.
It was a square dance band.
Now, how did,
And we played them some music other than square dancing during the breaks. You know.
Sure. How did you get the name Doc?
Doing radio shows, me and a friend of mine, Paul Greer, were playing radio shows from O.P. Lute's Furniture Store in Lenore, North Carolina, through Hickory's radio station, WHKY. And the radio announcer, I never can remember his name. He was an older man. He said, "Hey, Arthel," he said, "what's a good short name for you?" Paul's a good short name and be handy for the radio. And somebody in the audience, some girl, said, "Call him Doc," and it stuck.
There it is.
Yeah,
That's
it was
great.
just that simple.
Now, how old do you think you were at that time when you got the
I
Doc
guess,
name?
to tell you the truth, I'm pretty sure I was 18 years old.
Wow.
I could play the banjo some then and the guitar, and good enough to play on the radio, you know, get along with it.
Well, let's go back to that, because here you were playing at home. You'd gotten pretty good at playing these instruments. And then did people see you playing out on the street, or how did that work?
Well, the first time I played on the street was on the little banjo, and I played some frailing, and I played fingerstyle, but it wasn't the little fretless.
Mm-hmm.
It was a banjo that my oldest brother Arnold had. Down the road, I'm gonna sugar baby down the road, and across to the shop. My old hat's got a hole in the top. Down the road, you come to the turn. There's rocks in the road as big as a churn. Down the road, I'm gonna sugar baby down the road about a mile and a half. And I thought I heard my sugar baby laugh.
Did you make some money?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, made a few shekels, as Jack Williams used to say. They come along pretty handy, them 50 cents and quarters, you know.
I bet. And then did you get on the radio from that? Somebody sing you out on the street?
Oh, wait a minute. Somebody here in Boone put together a little, we called it an outlaw radio station by the time I was getting started along, picking pretty good on the guitar on the street. And an old boy named Paul Weston, his wife used to run a photo shop here in Boone, was out there, the man on the street, talking on the microphone, and they said, "Come here, buddy, and play a tune on the radio."
That was it, huh?
That was the first deal I played on the radio. I was scared, but I sung a Jimmy Rogers song, and I did pretty well.
I think you told me one time that Weepin' Willow was a good one that worked out on the street.
Yes, it was, and you know, a lot of people like that old song. The Carters had a pretty good version. Let me do a verse or two or three of it.
Okay.
If I can remember how it went, I think I can.
How long did you play on the street? How many years?
The last time I played on the street, when I was talking about there about Paul Weston and the Man on the Street mic, that was in the 40s, and I played some up in the 50s.
Mm-hmm.
I used to go to around to Wilkesboro here in Boone. Oh, I'm in sadness and in sorrow for the only one I love. When shall I see her? Oh, no, never till I meet her in heaven above. Oh, bury me beneath the willow, yes, under the weeping willow tree, so she may know where I am sleeping, and perhaps she will weep over me. Tomorrow was our wedding day, but oh Lord, oh where is she? She's gone away to seek another, and she cares no more for me. Now, those words are my own arrangement of what they did. I was a fellow, so I sang she, and they sang he is going to seek him another bride. You know, the way the original went. I did change the words around a little bit. I'm guilty of tamperage.
Tamperage, huh?
Tamperage, yeah. I used to tell Ralph Rensler that the fellow who helped me get started, you know, in the music. And that word always tickled him. He said, "Where'd you get that?" I said, "I don't know if I invented it or not. It just seemed to fit when you tamper with somebody's lyrics." Oh, well.
When did you first meet Clarence, or Tom Ashley as he's called around here?
It was well before the folk revival scene.
Weren't you in your late teens?
Yeah. I was in my late teens.
He was playing for land sales or something like that?
Yeah, it was before I met my sweetheart.
And did you start playing with him then, or did you just meet?
Yeah, we played with land sales, for land sales. What they did, somebody would buy a big tract of land, a good-sized tract with maybe 50 or 60 lots, you know, or 100. And they'd commence like on a Saturday morning, down about 10 o'clock, you know, time people would get out on the street or in the area where they were going, and they'd advertise it, and there'd be a big crowd there, you know, that might want to buy a lot. And they'd auction the lots off. They had choice lots, and then they had some others, and then average, and then the smaller ones. And they'd auction those lots off, and the auctioneer would break every once in a while, and we'd play a bunch of music. Tom and I did some of the old things, Tom Clarence Ashley. And then there was a little girl named Geneva Dow that could sing. Oh, God, she was a good singer, and she played guitar, and I'd always play some lead guitar for her. It worked out real good.
Well, Tom Ashley had made a bunch of records back in the 20s, and was he known for that? Did people remember that?
Yeah, a few people did, but he was rediscovered then, you know, in the 60s.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, So you just played with him a little bit at that time. It was just for the land sales.
Yeah, and made a few dollars, you know.
And then about that time, you traveled across the mountain to meet Gaither Carlton and learn some fiddle tunes from him. Is that correct?
Actually, I met Gaither before I started picking some with him. He and his wife, Rosalie's mama, and the two oldest children came over to Willard's, Irene and Rosalie. Rosalie was 9 or 10, and Irene was about 7, but they could sing pretty together. And I never thought of her as a sweetheart then. Then, I think it was the next year or the year after that, Rosalie was 10 or 11, maybe she was 11. We went across the mountain to Gaither's house, went with Willard and some of his family. And we stopped there, me and Gaither sat down under a big old hemlock there and played a bunch of tunes. I thought he was a good old-time fiddler. And I really enjoyed that. Well, I remember thinking what a pretty little voice Rosalie had. But then later, she was 14, 15, they moved to Wildcat, down there on the creek not far from where I was raised. And when I went in, she and Willard's daughter Pansy were unpacking dishes. And she turned around and said hello, and somebody might have well hit me over the head with a brick. I didn't have a lick of sense.
You got married shortly after that.
Yeah, and we ain't never split up yet.
You were only 23 when you got married, I think.
Just 23. Yeah. She had more sense than I did, so help me God. She did. Don't you erase that now, Steve. I mean, a lot more.
Rosalie has played a very important part in your career. What kind of things has she done?
Kept the home fires burning, and she has, since a good while before Merle died, she's been helping keep up the business end, the taxes and stuff at home, something I cannot do. And Merle showed her the ropes in that, and she just took it and went with it.
You've been with Rosalie for 54 years. What do you accredit that to?
Determination, and there's some love underneath all that, son. You got, and love, and I certainly respect her. I'll tell you, two people can't stay together that long just out of pure meanness. They've got to love one another to some extent. Determination has a lot to do with it, because in a good marriage, there's always storms.
You have to go through things, yeah.
Yes. And a whole lot of the storms I caused. Let's quit right there.
No way. You told me one time you had a pretty bad temper. Everybody thinks you're the most laid-back guy in the world, but...
Oh, Dad told me one time, this ought to go on the CD. We were cutting wood, and I won't tell you what I said. A piece of wood rolled down and hit me on that poor old tender shin right there and laid a hurting on it. And I said a pretty nice bad word, and Dad said, son, hold your temper. A man without a temper ain't worth a plug nickel, but a man that's got one and don't control it's worth less. It made good sense.
That does make good sense.
He had some pretty good old sayings. I'll tell you, he had some good horse sense. He had sense to put me to work.
Well, you've got a lot of common sense, too. I mean, you're really a level-headed person that looks at both sides of things, and you must have gotten that from him.
I don't know where it came from. Life teaches you a lot, too, David.
Of course.
Yeah.
When the Kingston Trio came out with Tom Dooley in, I guess it was the late 50s, you were playing with the band at that point, right? The dance band? What was the name of the band?
It was headed up by Jack Williams and the Country Gentlemen.
And the Kingston Trio at that time put out Hang Down Your Head, Tom Dooley. Can you tell us the family story?
Well, first I learned the melody that I use in some of the lyrics from my grandmother. Her folks knew, her mother and dad knew Tom Dooley's family. And she told me a lot about that I know about the happening. And the Kingstons in their narrative at the beginning talk about the eternal triangle, but actually, from the story grandmother told, there was 4 people involved. There was 2 guys and 2 gals, and Tom Dooley was involved with both girls, and so was Mr. Grayson, mentioned in Tom Dooley's song.
Yeah.
And it was generally believed, and Tom Dooley swore that he never harmed a hair on Laura's head, that Annie Melton stabbed the girl, and Tom helped cover up the crime, and that and Annie Melton was in jail for a while.
Right.
And she made her brags that they'd never put a rope around her pretty white neck. So,
huh. Now, your great-grandmother was actually there when she was dying.
Yes, she was, and all of the women claimed they could hear something in the room like hot stones being thrown into real cold water, and like the flames of hell roaring and things like that.
Wow.
It was a scary time, and Annie told the women that there was something, if she knew she'd never get well, that she needed to tell them, but she was afraid to tell them that she might get well, and she didn't tell them. But before she died, she called her husband into the room and told him whatever it was. He never breathed it either, but he almost lost his mind.
And this version of the song actually comes down through your great-grandmother.
Yes, it does. The melody and most of the lyrics that I use.
Let's play it.
Or some of them, anyhow. Hang your head, Tom Dooley, hang your head and cry. You killed little Laura Foster, and you know you're bound to die. You took her on the hillside for to make her your wife. You took her on the hillside, and there you took her life. Hang your head, Tom Dooley, hang your head and cry. You killed little Laura Foster, and you know you're bound to die. By the roadside, you begged to be excused. You left her by the roadside, then you hid her clothes and shoes. Hang your head, Tom Dooley, hang your head and cry. You killed little Laura Foster, and you know you're bound to die. All this trouble rolling o'er my breast. As long as I'm a living, boys, they ain't gonna let me rest. I know they're going to hang me tomorrow, I'll be dead. Though I never even harmed a hair on poor little Laura's head. Hang your head, Tom Dooley, hang your head and cry. You killed little Laura Foster, and you know you're bound to die. Hadn't been for Grayson, boys, I'd be in Tennessee. You can take down my old violin and play it all you please. At this time tomorrow, it'll be of no use to me. Hang your head, Tom Dooley, hang your head and cry. You killed little Laura Foster, and you know you're bound to die. Tomorrow, where do you reckon I'll be? Down in a lonesome hollow, hanging on a white oak tree. Hang your head, Tom Dooley, hang your head and cry. You killed little Laura Foster, and you know you're bound to die.
Was that surprising to you to hear a folk song that you knew actually had a family version of here on the radio?
It didn't really surprise me because a lot of people in the beginning of the folk revival were coming up with things like that by that time. The first thing I heard that was folk music, as contemporary folk music, I called it, the folk lovers that really loved genuine folk music called it watered-down versions of the old songs. I heard Good Night Irene, a Leadbelly tune done by the Weavers. And on the other side of it was Kisses Sweeter Than Wine. That was my first introduction to the contemporary folk music. That was early.
That was early. That was in the 40s.
Yeah.
But then when Tom Dooley came out and became such a big hit and you know, won the first country music Grammy, all that kind of stuff, sold 3 million copies, did that make you think, hey, maybe I could make a living doing this?
No, sir. It really didn't. And when Ralph Rensler came down, and I knew Tom Dooley, the version that I do at that time, when he came down and heard me and told me that I had something to offer in the way of entertainment in the folk revival, I was skeptical. I said, well, Ralph, people ain't going to sit and listen to me do that old-time stuff. He said, you'll be surprised. I said, well, buddy, I know it'll be a gamble, but if you think that I can do that and be a success at it, I'll tackle it. He said, we'll help you all we can. And the coffee house circuit was the first thing I did by myself, taking bus trips to New York City. Back then, the drivers were courteous, and I had the nerve. I said, I'm going to do it, my dad.
Just get a suitcase and get out there and wait for the bus.
They put my suitcase underneath, but the driver always thought that my guitar got put up here. And I caught the bus from Boone.
And went all the way to New York City?
Well, I went to Bristol, caught the express.
Whew. Well, how did Ralph Rensler find out about you in the first place?
He came to Union Grove because of the early records that Tom Clarence Ashley did, looking for Clarence Ashley, and found him.
This is in the 60s, I guess?
Yeah. Tom and Fred and Clint were there at the time, Fred Price and Clint Howard. And Tom told Ralph about me, and when Ralph heard me play, he decided that I needed to be out there. And I tried awfully hard, and it was lonesome. And sometimes I'd be out 2 weeks at a time, you know.
And he set up the tours for you to go to New York?
Yeah, he did. He booked me in the coffee houses, and some of his friends would take me something like up to Brandeis University for a little two-night thing at a coffee house. And then I did Club 47 in Cambridge a lot in the 60s.
I mean, that whole folk thing was just beginning at that time.
Yeah.
Could you make any money to make it worthwhile?
Enough with having a place to stay for free, like in Ralph's apartment there in New York, and some other friends in Cambridge, the people that ran Club 47. I had a place to stay at their house that didn't cost me anything. Yeah, I made a few dollars. In '63, I was playing in Philadelphia at a place called the Second Fret in downtown. It was in Center City. And I was going to have to stay in a little old motel across the street, and if I did that, it was going to eat up what I could have earned in the 2 weeks. I was opening for a group headed up by Roger Bush. I forgot what that man's name. Clarence White was in that band. Anyway, I was opening for them, and I wasn't going to clear but about, maybe $50 or $60 a week, and I couldn't see that because it was hard work. It was 5 nights a week. And I made up my mind. At the end of that 2 weeks, I was going to go home and I was going to stay there. Old Jerry Ricks, great big old black fellow, friendly blues playing man, was cooking for Manny Rubin in the kitchen. And after I finished my set of music, he come up and he says, Doc Watson, there's a good clean room over at my house with a nice bed in it, and your name is on the door. I want you to come stay with me for these 2 weeks. You don't need to stay in that old flea bag.
And that kept you going in the music.
And I said, Jerry, if you let me split the grocery bill at least with you, he said he wasn't going to charge me. I said, I'll go, but if you don't do that, I won't feel right. Well, he said, if nothing else will do, you can do that if you will. He said, and we'll pick. I said, buddy, we'll do that. Well, he learned all kinds of things from me, and I learned a few blues licks from Jerry. And it worked out great. We ate like kings. think it cost us $35 a week apiece in those days to have anything we wanted to eat. He was a friend in need, and he's been a friend ever since, and I hardly ever get to see him anymore, but I'll always treasure him as a friend. I decided I better not quit. I took about $200 home, and I said, nah, can't quit now, son. It wasn't long after that till I filed a little income tax.
Aha.
My daughter was so proud of that. Bless her little heart. Never will forget, she's the proudest young'un I've ever seen when I went and signed off at the commission for the blind here in Boone where they were helping the family. Told them if I needed it, I'd call them again. And I wrote a letter to Raleigh doing the same thing.
I bet that was a proud moment.
It really was. It was for me, and I told the people at the commission, I said, if it's a gamble, I don't know how long. I said, I went and filed my first income tax today, and if I need you folks, I'll holler, but take what my family was needing and give it to somebody that needs it worse than I do right now.
Wow.
Well, I never had to call on them.
I guess
The Lord
not.
been with me, son.
Yeah, I'd say so. So that was, what did you start doing after that? Just continue?
Yeah, and
Got that first record, I guess, the Vanguard record.
yeah. I'm not sure if I'd already done the first recording when I filed my first income tax or not. I don't believe I had. Anyway, the Watson family had been released on Folkways.
Right.
And the volume 1 and 2 of Old Time Music at Clarence Ashley's had already been released.
That's where most people first heard of you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in '64, I did my first solo concert tour. And Ralph called me just before I left L.A. He called me from my house and said, I got some news for you. You ain't going to believe it. I said, well, if it's bad, lay it on me anyhow. What is it? He said, it ain't bad. He said, Merle is learning the guitar. Rosalie showed him his first chords, and he just took it and went with it.
He was only 15, wasn't he?
Yeah. And at the end of June that year, he went with me to the Berkeley Folk Festival and played backup guitar on every lick I played on the stage.
That guy was an amazing musician. And that's when he first heard Mississippi John Hurt fingerpicking, too.
Yes,
wasn't
it is. And, you know, I asked him, I said, son, how'd you feel out there in front of that 12,000 people? He said, I wanted to run. I said, I'm awful glad you didn't. Yeah, he says, I am too now, but he said it was scary. I bet it was.
I bet it was, too. Well, I saw you, it must have been in '64, so I was still in high school, out at the Ash Grove in California. And I think you were just by yourself at that time.
Yeah, I did some solo work there.
You look at those as hard days or the good old days or what?
There were lonely, hard days. I stayed with some friends, different ones out there. There was a bunch of them. One old boy that I remember well when I was doing solo work at the Ash Grove, might have been staying with him when you saw me there, was a fella, Al Ross. He did music script for the movies, a lot of it. And he loved the guitar and loved to play rhythm to them breakdowns. The old man. He was one of the people who really befriended me and was really good to me and enjoyed doing it, I mean.
Well, in those days in the 60s, really you were kind of at the top of the heap of the folk music revival. Did it seem like that to you?
No, it just seemed like a lot of lonely hours and hard work. The music itself and the shows on the stage I loved.
Yeah.
But that plus the fact that I was earning a little living while poor little Rosalie was doing back-breaking work at home and keeping the home fires burning. I was trying to do my part, and the lonely hours were the interest I had to pay.
That's right.
On the money that I earned.
When did it start to build up and you could see this is going to work out all right?
When Merle started traveling with me.
And how old was he then?
Well, the first trip he did was that summer,
Berkeley.
15. He was 15 then, and he did another little job or two with me that summer. I don't recall exactly where they were, but he went to school, and when he did start traveling full-time with me in '66, he finished his high school from the American School thing. You could get it by mail.
Right.
He finished that on the road. He even took some courses in electrical wiring and different things.
Mm-hmm.
And he was handed that little box with talents in it when he came here like I was. I reckon there wasn't much he couldn't do in mechanics or electronics. He was just besides being a doggone good musician.
Yeah, just a natural musician.
Yeah, he learned it much faster than I did.
Yeah, he was quick. When did this Circle Be Unbroken come about, that album?
Must have been 69.
Mm-hmm.
John McEwen may have mentioned it to me in Boulder. I don't remember the details of that, but this I do remember. We were in California at the time, working the Ash Grove, and we were at Dale Zingelman's, some friends of ours that lived out there. And John came in at a birthday party that Miss Zingelman had set for Merle. It was in February. And John got me off in the corner and told me he wanted me to work on that album, that the Circle Be Unbroken album. And I said, John, I'd like to do it. Have you invited Merle? And he said, well, no. Well, he didn't. He didn't turn around and go over and talk to Merle. And I won't go into this anymore. And I just said to myself, I'm not going to do it. And I told Merle, I said, no. I said, I'll let you know, John. And I said, Merle, I'm not going to do it. And he said, Dad, it hurts my feelings that he didn't invite me. But it will help us. We're in a slump right now in the career. He said, it really will help us if we're heard in a wide audience, and that record will get us out there, even if you do it solo. I said, okay, buddy. I don't want to, but I'll do it. That's exactly, I always called him buddy half the time if I really agreed with him, because he was a true friend as well as a good son. Well, I did it, and he hit it right on the head. It really helped us.
It got your name out there all around the country, didn't it?
Yes, it did.
All the young people had that album. I mean, everybody who loved that music got that album.
And the sessions were fun. That overcame the hurt.
Uh-huh.
With working guys that I'd heard over the years.
Who were some of those?
Roy Acuff, different ones.
Maybelle Carter.
Yeah, Maybelle. I didn't actually pick with Merle Travis and with Earl Scruggs, but Roy Husky, Junior Husky, Roy's daddy, played bass on that, and I'd always wanted to sit down and pick where that man played bass, and I got my wish. And the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band, I liked the group. I really enjoyed them.
They did a great job putting that together. What were you going to say?
Yeah, Bill McEwen, I think, programmed the thing after we put down the sessions. You know, most of it was unrehearsed.
Really?
90% of it.
Yeah, well, you hear them talking on there, and it's just got that wonderful, relaxed feel. I guess the biggest hit for you off that record was the Tennessee Stud.
I think a lot of people liked it. It might have been the biggest one. Merle said to his mother one time, somebody mentioned this, and he said, Mama, I've played it at least 5,000 times.
Really?
Along about 1825, I left Tennessee very much alive. I never would have got through the Arkansas mud if I hadn't been riding on the Tennessee Stud. I had some trouble with my sweetheart's paw. One of her brothers was a bad outlaw. Sent her a letter by my Uncle Fudd, then I rode away on the Tennessee Stud. The Tennessee Stud was long and lean, the color of the sun, and his eyes were green. He had the nerve and he had the blood, and there never was a horse like the Tennessee Stud. One day I was riding through a beautiful land when I ran smack into an Indian band. They jumped their nags with a whoop and a yell, and away we went like a bat out of well. I circled their camp for a time or two to show 'em what a Tennessee horse can do. The redskin boys couldn't get my blood 'cause I was a riding on the Tennessee Stud. Come on, boy. The Tennessee stud was long and lean, the color of the sun, and his eyes were green. He had the nerve and he had the blood, and he never was a hoss like the Tennessee stud. We drifted on down into no man's land, across that river called the Rio Grande. I raced my hoss with a Spaniard's foal till I got me a skin full of silver and gold. Me and a gambler, we couldn't agree. We got in a fight over Tennessee. We jerked our guns and he fell with a thud, and I got away on the Tennessee stud. Poor boy. The Tennessee stud was long and lean, the color of the sun, and his eyes were green. He had the nerve and he had the blood, and he never was a hoss like the Tennessee stud. I got just as lonesome as a man can be, dreaming of my gal in Tennessee. That Tennessee stud's green eyes turned blue, 'cause he was a-dreaming of a sweetheart too. He's a big fella. So we eloped right back across Arkansas. I beat up her brother and then I had to have a fall. Boy, I whooped him. Seen that girl with the golden hair. She was a-riding on the Tennessee mare. I said, oh boy. The Tennessee stud was long and lean, the color of the sun, and his eyes were green. He had the nerve and he had the blood, and he never was a hoss like the Tennessee stud. All right, Donald, you can sing one now. Stirrup to stirrup and side by side, we crossed the mountains and the valleys wide. We came to Big Muddy, then we forded the flood on the Tennessee mare and the Tennessee stud. Pretty little baby on the cabin floor, a little house coat playing round the door. I love that gal with the golden hair and the Tennessee stud. I love the Tennessee mare. Man, they was good horses. The Tennessee stud was long and lean, the color of the sun, and his eyes were green. He had the nerve and he had the blood, and there never was a hoss like the Tennessee stud. Whoa!
Was that kind of a turning point in your career when that came out then?
It brought up, it built it back up from the slump.
A lot of new opportunities.
A lot more jobs.
Right.
Yeah.
When did you understand that there were just thousands of young people out there copying your style, trying to learn what you were doing on the guitar?
I began to learn that in the 60s when I was still doing the folk festivals and coffee houses. I did some folk festivals by myself as a solo act.
Were you surprised about that, to see that?
I couldn't believe it. You go on the stage and there'd be anywhere from 5 to 10,000 people out there. And some of the bigger colleges, you know, where they have the folk festivals. And you go on the stage and sit down, and you could, if it hadn't been for traffic noise and other sounds, you could have heard a pin drop with the audience. I mean, they were there to listen what you were doing.
Well, in these concerts we've been doing, you know, here so many years later, it's exactly the same thing.
I know, and isn't that gratifying when you go on the stage and people do that? If you got any good notes, you're liable to find them.
They're liable to turn up, huh?
Yes, sir, you're liable to find them. In a few minutes, you're not inhibited by, I wonder if I'm going to do all right. You just forget about that. Mm-hmm. You can play. Somebody says, how does a good applause feel? I said, like a handshake amplified by however many times people there is there. A good handshake of fellowship. That's what it feels like.
That's a good way to put it. A lot of people wonder why you didn't try for mainstream success. You certainly have the voice, you've got the chops on the instrument. Or did you?
No, I never did. Merle asked me one time, he said, Dad, what do you think about going commercial? This was after we had fairly decent success with the album Memories, you know, and some good shows we'd played on time or two.
Right.
He said, "What do you think about going commercial?" I said, "Son, you really want my honest opinion?" "Yes, sir." He said, "I do." And I didn't know what his answer was going to be, but I thought it did. And I said, "Son, I don't think I want any part of that rat race." He said, "That's my sentiments, exactly. I don't either." He said, "Good."
Well, you've had a long, successful career not doing that.
Well, I've not stuck in one niche of music. I've played a little of all of it, of what I felt like was some of the best.
Mm-hmm. Well, you've always been kind of a bridge between, in my book, between the old-time music and the bluegrass as well.
Yeah, that's another thing. I love good bluegrass music. The original sound.
Mm-hmm. What is it about the old-time music that you like so much?
It's down to earth, has things to say. It kind of takes me back to memories of when I was a boy, the way people were. Certain tunes just bring up personalities to my mind. The feeling that was back then, it brings that to mind. I don't know. All good music, I think, expresses more than just sound and lyrics. It has personality.
I agree. I always feel like the spirits of the old people are kind of in those songs.
Absolutely. No, you couldn't have put it better.
What are some of your main influences in the singing realm? Who were some of the people that you like to listen to?
You brought me a question here that I'm hard put to answer. In the early days, one of my favorite singers of all the time back then was Jimmy Rogers.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't try to copy him. I don't know if he influenced my style. I like his songs, but I think if you don't try to imitate or emulate a certain singer or singers, if you will, your own style develops on its own. You just do it.
Right.
And they inspire you to sing. You sing what you are able to sing. I never was too good at vibrato, and I can do a little of it in some songs and slight vibrato in the voice, but I never could get those where your Adam's apple goes bobs
Right.
up and down in your stomach. Your diaphragm goes in and out about couple or 3 inches. I can't do that. I gotta tell you, I've been racking my brain. I have to find a way out. I've had enough of this continual rain. A change is coming, no doubt. It's been a too long time with no peace of mind, and I'm ready for the times to get better. A long, lonely time with no peace of mind, and I'm ready for the times to get better. You try to take from me what I cannot give. No happiness can I find, and I have a dream that I've been trying to live. It's burning holes in my mind. It's been a too long time with no peace of mind, and I'm ready for the times to get better. A long, lonely time with no peace of mind, and I'm ready for the times to get better.
How do you keep yourself inspired over such a long career?
Not doing too much is one of the
You mean not doing too many performances?
Right.
Uh-huh.
Not doing too much. I've done a few trips. Merle and I did a few that just about burned us out.
Mm-hmm.
The longest one I did was the first solo concert tour I did. But I was willing to rest after that. That was when Merle started playing the guitar and I was out on the road. I did from the 17th of March to the 20th of May. I'd had it.
Yeah, I bet.
Me and Merle did a couple of 6 and 7 weeks. The last one we did, we decided we'd do no more of that. At one time, I mean, we'd be out there that long. That's too hard.
It's interesting to me that you've been very open about the kinds of tunes you've learned. You've never really stuck to just one kind of music, and you will play all kind of things if you like them.
I couldn't stick in one niche. I've loved everything, some of everything from the classical music to old-time fiddling. Mm-hmm. And to me, music was music if it was good. Some music I can't relate to. I'll not expound on that here. Mm-hmm. But
how do you go about picking a song and saying, this is a song that would work for me?
Well, I just listen to it and love it and say, hey, I like this one.
Mm-hmm. Then you just start working out an arrangement like that?
Yeah.
Do you still practice?
Occasionally, if I'm working on a new song, yeah, I pick up the guitar now and then around the house. You have to.
Any advice for young musicians who are listening to this and want to get good at their instrument?
Yes, sir. Practice like the devil. That's the way you do it. You listen to good music that you think will mean something if you want to make a career out of it, and then really work at it. And take your time. Don't get frustrated and say, God, I can't do this. Try it again the next day. If you get tired of a piece you're working on, it's too hard. For instance, I have tried something that I just seemingly couldn't put together, and on parts of it. And the next day I tried again, and a little new inspiration had come to me, and I'd find it. Don't give up on a tune, even the second or third try.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any particular way that you practice?
If you're learning a hard tune to flat pick, this will give you one example. Slow the tune down. Listen to the thing till you get the melody in your head, and then when you begin to learn it with your flat pick or the fingerstyle, slow the tempo way down. Learn it slowly till you get all the notes in place, and teach the notes to your reflexes in your hands. You've already got them in your head, or you couldn't learn it in the first place. Then gradually speed it up to normal tempo.
Mm-hmm. So that's what you do, huh?
That's exactly what I did.
Now, you and I have both lost children, Sarah Jane for me, Merle for you. And one of the things that I found comfort in was learning to play the blues. That's what got me into it. It was the slide guitar was the only instrument that would play the pain I felt. What helped you get through those tough times?
Two things, a dream I had about Merle and the songs he loved. It's just that, those two ingredients.
And continuing to play those songs?
Yes. And playing other songs that had about the same thing to say, good blues. Richard and I play a lot of blues that Merle and I never played. Mm-hmm. My grandson, Richard, that is.
That must be very gratifying to have Richard playing with you.
Oh, it certainly is, David. It's a wonderful thing to have that boy on them blues riffs and other things that he does.
Doc, now, how would you like to be remembered?
Just a good old down-to-earth boy that didn't think he was perfect and that loved music, and I'd like to leave quite a few friends behind, and I hope I will. Other than that, I don't want nobody putting me on a pedestal when I leave here.
Well,
I'm just one of the people, David, just me.
I think you'll leave with quite a few friends.
Merle did, and I'd like to leave at least half as many as he did.
Mm-hmm.
I know I don't have the gentle, persuasive personality that he had. God didn't bless me with that. To me, Merle, with his weaknesses, was a gem. He
was.
He had something to offer in the way of friendliness to people.
Yeah. It must be pretty gratifying to see thousands of people learning your songs and having influenced all these people with your music.
It is, but even more gratifying is a wonderful audience. If it's 200 people or if it's 10,000, it's the most wonderful feeling about. The only feeling I'm going to get a little sentimental here. There's two things that can top that. As the wonderful feeling when you think of the girl you love better than anything in this world, and when you think of how the good Lord's blessed you, and what it means to have somebody to look up to that's not a part of this old rough world. Now,
pretty great. You've had all three, so you are blessed. Let's close with a song that sort of spans the old-time and bluegrass world. A lot of people think of this as bluegrass, but it started as an old-time song, Rollin' in My Sweet Baby's Arms.
Okay, I'll start it off, David. Gonna lay around this shack till the mail train gets back. Then I'll roll in my sweet baby's arms. Roll in my sweet baby's arms. Roll in my sweet baby's arms. Gonna lay around the shack till the mail train gets back. Then I'll roll in my sweet baby's arms. Pick it, David. Sister's a beauty, I prayed her. Mama, she can weave and can spin. Dad owns an interest in that old cotton mill. Lord, watch that old greenback roll in. Roll in my sweet baby's arms. Roll in my sweet baby's arms. Gonna lay around the shack till the mail train gets back. Then I'll roll in my sweet baby's arms. You at last Friday night when I was laying down in jail. You was a walking the street with some other feller, wouldn't come down and go my bail. Doggone you, roll in my sweet baby's arms. Roll in my sweet baby's arms. Gonna lay around the shack till the mail train gets back. Then I'll roll in my sweet baby's arms. Let's pick it now. Hey!